Good morning, everyone. Today, once again, I've got wonky internet, so I apologize. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Band, and I'd love to welcome you to the Daily Edge on the Place Your Trades Network. We are the network that focuses on placing and trading daily options during the CME Group's using the CME Group's contracts to trade indices, energies, metals, and now Bitcoin. Today's broadcast is brought to you by Tradeovate, which has built a custom app dedicated to trading the CME Group's event contracts, and you can trade them on the custom app or on the dome of the main platform. My favorite place to start, of course, is the Place Your Trades Network. There we go. Love it. As we talk about human-like bears. Never know what you're going to see in the morning news. So my favorite place to go is the dashboard pre-market, always coming from Shy Girl, who is absolutely fantastic at breaking things down. Why the overnight was weak? Manufacturing PMI. Our ISM didn't do that well today either. Ugly figures in Germany and hedge funds throwing in the towel. These sorts of notes are critical to help you trade, whether you use event contracts or not. And again, for us, the daily gap stats are key in terms of saying, hey, if you look at the market and you see you've got the probability of closing above the open at 58% and a profit factor of 1.5, that's a great place to buy the dip. I absolutely love buying the dip when numbers look like that. That is the strongest one that I saw today. Next in line would be the E-mini S&P. And again, I want to look for things to buy that dip. Coming into the last space on our Place Your Trades Network page, these option tools are extraordinary. It tells us where people are positioning during the course of the day. And you can see as price action gets very noisy into the day as it moves forward, the traders begin to actively compete for positioning in terms of where the price will go. Today, we've got the majority of folks sitting at the 4610 area, and quite divided in terms of yes or no. But these sorts of things tell us that using the gap stats, if we buy the dip at that money and we choose that strike, we're going to be in really great shape. So that dip action, ooh, I've got oil sitting over there. That dip action looks like somewhere around the 45.90s. Going to give us that yes event. Those are going for around $14. The max payout is 20, and we'll get to see that payout at the end of the day. Something else really fantastic that you can use is the micro options. Those chains doing just beautifully as well. And you can look at that same one here. This is going to cost, because it's in the money, at this time, this is going to cost about $262. Going to get yourself a really nice lift as it comes back into the area near the original open. So as we talk about that a little bit, I would love to get the chance to introduce you to I love this guest, James Ferreira. That's a Portuguese name, is it not?
Yeah, good job. Yeah, it is Portuguese.
Well, yep, because correct. I am also Portuguese, so
awesome.
I know the name. Yeah, so
yep.
That's fantastic.
My grandfather is first generation Portuguese from Boston. His parents moved over here and brought the family, and he met my lovely grandmother over there, and thus the Ferreira name was born. So
that's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
So the reason that I asked you on the show, James, is for actually a couple of reasons, but you are in a group of individuals that began trading during an amazing part of the stock market, and that was during the COVID event.
Right.
So you were sort of uh, led into the space by the lockdowns and the rest. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about first. My kids absolutely love inking. They have it all over them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what led you to be a tattoo artist in the first place?
Oh, wow. A tattoo artist. So, I had always been an artist as a young man. I took art in junior high and high school, and it was actually my freshman year of my high school stint. My art teacher it asked me if she could enter one of my drawings and paintings in a county school-wide contest, and I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" I didn't think anything of it. I ended up winning that contest, and she told me, "You're really good at this art thing. You should pursue it." And during my high school career, I loved old cars. I had a 1950 Chevy, I had a 1951 Chevy. That was my life. And I had never really thought about anything other than maybe going down that road, old cars, restoration, stuff like that. And I was all of a sudden faced with, well, maybe I could be an artist. What is an artist? What could I do as an artist? So that was in 96, 96. And I started looking around. Graphic arts was just starting to get really big, and I started to look at art colleges. And I all of my friends who I was surrounded by, these were older guys that were all into old cars, and they all had tattoos. And so I started thinking like, well, that looks pretty cool. That looks like art to me.
Mm-hmm.
And and I started kind of learning about tattoo culture and the history behind American traditional tattooing, and I fell in love with it, and I ended up really hounding a guy that was near my house who owned a little private shop, and he gave me my first tattoo, and from then I was just stuck. And I immediately, as soon as I was done with high school, I got a job as an apprentice at a shop that was down the way, whom I knew one of the gentlemen that worked there. He got me in sweeping the floors, and next thing I know, 6 months later, they're asking, "Why are you still here? Do you want to sweep the floors for forever?" And I said, "No, I want to be a tattooer." And they said, "Oh, okay, well, sure, you could start." And that was it. That was history. I've been tattooing now 22 years professionally, and just like everything, I think down the line as you get older, I had a son, and you start thinking, what can I provide for my family, and what can I do for the long term for when I'm no longer here? What can my legacy be? And what can I leave behind for my child that is going to enrich his life and leave him comfortable in a way that I never really got to be. When I was younger, uh, I we weren't poor by any means, but we things were tight sometimes. Both my
Yeah.
parents, who were separated, worked very, very hard. My dad had 3 jobs at one time. My mom, single mom, working a ton of hours a day. So things were tight, and I started thinking as we came into COVID, that was the first time I really kind of got scared, and it was like, uh-oh, everything just stopped. Like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Where is money gonna come from if I can't physically go tattoo? And thus began an amazing journey in the market so far. So yeah.
That's such a beautiful recap, and I'm sorry for being the old lady that cries at everything,
Oh no.
but I love that you said your dedication just to being in the environment of those other artists said, you know what, I'll clean up around you. I just want to learn what you do.
Yeah.
I find that level of dedication in the heart of an individual, I see it flower into success many, many times because I love engaging with younger people and finding out about how they're willing to move up the ranks by saying, hey, it's okay if I'm just here and not doing what you do, just so long as I can watch you.
just as
And
long as I'm here.
so, yeah, exactly. And I absolutely love that. I love that, because
Appreciate
I
that.
suspect that that's one of the reasons that you have managed to not fall to the graveyard
Yeah,
of traders that is literally littered with COVID traders,
right.
littered with them because they went in and said, how hard could this be? I'm going to keep levering up. So the key
Yeah,
things that I love anchoring on to share with others are: one, you have a sense of dedication to purpose, your purpose being, I have a young child, how can I make sure that I'm caring for that person, and thinking outside the box to go, hey, I need to learn something, but also have risk parameters, because my number one goal is caring for my family and
right.
those people around me. And a lot of times when you come into the market with a roll the dice kind of temperament, you really fall off the rails
Yeah.
very, very quickly, very, very
Hmm.
quickly. And you just mentioned that you had, a number of friends and compatriots that did fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
One of the things that kept you in between the guidelines is really studying the VWAP. And both of our friends, Zach Hurwitz, just
Hmm.
an an incredible mind, really. He's just got an incredible mind, and his
Yeah.
ability to design these systems have really allowed you to enter that environment and really pick up the reins there. So
Right.
tell us about your introduction to the VWAP itself and what made you go, you know what, I'm going to anchor here,
Right.
metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, for sure. You're totally right about that want to just be in an environment where you're surrounded by people that you know are better than you, and that you just want to absorb, right? Learning through osmosis, right? Coming from a long tattoo career that I had also I have apprenticed to successful tattooers now. I knew what it take. I know what it takes to be the low man on the totem pole and sit there and have just an unwavering um, grit and determination to get through this, no matter how hard it is. It sounds pretty brash, but I can get punched in the face a lot of times and still be standing, you know?
The
So,
mark of every good trader is how
yeah,
many licks can you take?
exactly, right? Um, so I knew that when I came into trading from the get that I was going to need to find somebody or a community where, just like you said, I could anchor in that was real, that was not going to want to take my money, and that had a system that could be validated. And so I sought that out. I started listening to another very popular podcast called Chat with Traders. I'm sure
Yeah,
a lot of people know that, right?
yeah,
And I went through hundreds of episodes, and I heard Zach's episode, and it just clicked. I heard him speaking, and I thought to myself, this is somebody I want to learn from. And on that episode, Zach offered free of charge a 30-minute session with him to call and just kind of understand what the VWAP is about, understand what the tools are about, understand his kind of approach to the market. And while I didn't immediately take him up on that free 30 minutes, I thought that that was really kind of him and really cool. So I
yeah.
went and checked out the
He's an
site.
awesome guy.
And upon checking out the site, I was signing up immediately. I got the tools, and I started kind of voraciously taking in all of his education, and it made sense. The idea of knowing where everybody's average is, and then what is an extremity from there, both 1 and 2 standard deviations away, what is an extreme of a market, and what is average, right? And that carries forward into my trading today. I always tell people, I trade around a few key items. 1 is price, 2 is volume, and 3 is extension, right? What is the price? How much volume do we have there? And how far do I think we could extend away from this? And Zach's methodology really kind of encompassed that in a very easy to understand, very straightforward, very simple approach. I then took
Absolutely.
that and molded it into my own. Zach is very large cap, kind of mega cap focused.
Mhm.
Traded futures for a little while as well. But I was, like a lot of traders during the COVID craze, very, very attracted to small cap, kind of high flying runner names. And so I brought the VWAP ideology over to that. And I spent a long time kind of drilling down into, okay, how can I make this work? And it was a lot of back end fundamental research, a lot of statistical probabilities, understanding, just like you were just showing in the beginning of the show, right? What is the likelihood of this stock doing X, Y, or Z through historical analysis? And then how can I navigate that with the tools and the trade types that we use through the VWAP? And I was able to successfully do that. And I started to build up a little bit, and then I moved into options, and I started trading SPY almost exclusively. And that's when I was starting to build a tool for myself to kind of locate where is the volume, right? I had the idea through another concept that was shared on Twitter, and it was finding the highest volume average price of the last year or 2 years, and then working around that. And I thought, well, this could be distilled down to then find the highest average price intraday and on a week or a month. And I approached Zach with that idea, and I said, hey, I don't know coding. Uh, would you help me with this project? And what do you think of it? And he didn't really know me that well. He knew that I was in the room and I was learning from his approach, but he liked the question that I posed and the system that I'd kind of put in front of him. And I said, I think this could work. How do you feel about it? And that began the relationship of him and I becoming, or the beginning of the relationship of him and I becoming very close, spending hours and hours and hours on the phone each night, building a full tool that we call VWAP Boulevard, and just spending a lot of time getting to know each other. And that's where I really started to come into my own trading, because I started to learn a deeper understanding of how Zach viewed the markets. And I then took that and was able to really kind of mold my own approach out of that. Uh-oh, did I lose you? I think I lost Ann. If I'm still on here. So anyways, yeah, I started looking. I am still connected. Okay. So I'll keep going for a second till we get Ann back. Through that, I built a tool and exclusively traded SPY for quite a while, traded 0DT options. And through that 0DT options experience, I learned how valuable the concept of delta hedging and gamma is. And I paired that with what I was doing already with volume weighted average price and deep historical analysis of SPY and ES and the SPX combo. And I formed the system that I'm currently trading now, which is an intraday system based around intraday average price, prior day average price and value, and today's gamma levels. From the mother complex that we call from the SPX complex, right? So every night we get information from CBOE and from different data providers, and we plot on chart the largest gamma areas and where we think dealers will have to position themselves. Just like Ann was showing you guys earlier, there's a historical. Oh, there she is. She's back. There's a historical way ES and SPX move, right? And if you know the probabilities going into each day for certain setups, you can then take that gamma and VWAP analysis and have a pretty good probability at knowing, maybe how the day will pan out. So now that Ann's back, I'll give it back to you. Sorry. I was just trying to fill the void there.
No, it's no problem. Thank you for filling the void. I got to tell you, my internet conspires against me daily.
Oh, no. Oh, really? Oh man, I had that.
Yeah, you know,
I had that for a while.
ever since Ian, Hurricane Ian, because I live on the water and it was just a kind of a nightmare event for us, and
Oh no.
the internet still is not good. So
Oh no.
luckily, I know a lot about that that story of finding those areas, and so I appreciate you filling that
Yeah, for sure.
void
Yeah,
for me. I really, really do.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah,
the
I got closer with Zach, and eventually he offered me a job, and that's where I lay now. So
Absolutely. And you really are an anchor for a lot of folks in there. So, one of the key questions that I wanted to ask, because you really have a touch on people who are doing well and people who are struggling, because everyone that comes into a room is somewhere in their journey, what
right.
would you say is the thing that you notice that traders do most often when they're having trouble?
Most often when they're having trouble. That's a good question. Traders do most often when they're having trouble. Um, in my case, I think probably go too narrow and kind of obsess on one thing, right? Instead of taking a second to pause and zoom out and kind of look at everything from a 30,000 foot view, including yourself, right? Your performance,
Right?
your execution,
Absolutely.
how you're doing mentally, etc. Um, I think people, they stay in their own little world a little too much sometimes, and they don't zoom out to stop. And they're probably not self-aware or self-accountable enough. I think they want to, when stuff starts going wrong, they kind of want to blame the market. And I believe in 100% accountability. Right? It's not the market's fault. It's our fault if we're doing poorly, right? And you have to
Exactly.
find that balance. And there might be a bad luck streak, right? And unfortunately,
Hmm.
we don't know where we fall in that random distribution. The market is random, right? We could be
Yeah.
handed a streak of 100 losses in a row, and we got to know that our risk is on point, that we'll be able to survive that distribution of losses and get to the other side. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I, I love your framework of everything being in probabilities in terms of those standard deviations, simply because I am one of those kinds of people that gravitates to those numbers.
right.
So when we talk about setting up for the open
Mhm.
and going into the close, two places that we see the most accumulation of volume events.
Mhm.
Um, Sav, if we could put the screen up. Do we have that? Yes, thank you so much. What I have up here is not as beautiful as the VWAP Boulevard that you guys designed, but it does show these standard deviations in
But
terms of,
this is the core of our system right here, intraday VWAP, right? This is what the
yes,
whole system is formed off of.
yes. And so as we stare down into these spaces, one of the key elements that pinpoints natural movement versus aggressive movement are these standard deviations. And
Correct.
so, um, one of the things that Zach likes to do is when you're following trend, and of course, James, as he follows that also in the space, the one standard deviation is a good space for you to look at trend to follow. So if your candlesticks are running at or close to these guys and you've got yourself some slope, then you know that your bounces into that VWAP are likely to fade and you're going to
Right.
follow right back into that one standard deviation um,
Hmm.
in the motion. And then
Yeah.
that two standard deviation and a little bit more tells you about those little excesses. And this is where we can actually look at those pinpoint events that move forward and expand greater. So early in the morning today, we had this motion that was very tight in the overnight and then we had the break, and then we began to trade on the outside of that one standard deviation. I actually think I might have it at like maybe 1.2 or something
Oh,
like
it's all
that.
good. Yeah,
You can
for
squish
sure.
around,
Yeah.
which is really great. That's something else you said. You said, hey, I came in, I learned from Zach. I took what he had and I said, how can I flex this to make it something that's mine?
Right.
And as a trader, being fully engaged, find something that what someone wants, what someone else says that I ought to do, make that piece gravitate for you, and you're going to end up being able to find entries and exits that really are relatively pinpoint because of what you know about the VWAP. I love
Right.
VWAP ribbons. They're some of
Yeah.
my, I absolutely love them. They tell us so much about what the market is doing. So in your using of the VWAP, when you come into the morning and you see something begin to accelerate out and away and bringing slope to your VWAP, what are one of the first things that you tell the traders to look at in terms of positioning?
So I think it's important to view everything in kind of a bigger picture context. When I'm going through my morning prep, I'm always using a top-down approach, right? So if you think of average price or volume weighted average price in the context of either higher time frames being day, week, month, etc., quarter, year, and
Mhm.
then where are we in those larger time frames? Uh, and how does that relate to where we're at intraday, right? Um, it's all about where we are in the narrative of the bigger picture. So I told my traders today that in context of the year to date VWAP right now, we are actually pulling in and we're well above 2 standard deviations. So we're a little extended on this daily move, and we've been talking about for a week or so that, hey, we could be coming in here soon. We've got to keep our eye on that, right? And then you go down the line. You're reading the context of where we are in the view of the monthly and the weekly, et cetera. And when I see us, you know, uh, we get a tight overnight range like that, and the little nuances of the deep bands start to give you some clues. When we're tight and flat and you've got no slope, that's what Zach calls a counter trend market, right? Or a balanced market.
Yeah.
And when we're in a balance phase, well, where are we in balance relative to? Are
Oh,
we
that's a good
inside of
point.
the prior day's range? Are we
Yeah.
in balance above prior day's range or
Mhm.
below prior day's range? So I'm
Mhm.
always looking at everything kind of in a bigger picture view. And I actually, hold on, I'm looking at your screen. I just want to double check my comment before I say this. I don't want to say something out of school here. But when we opened up this morning, it was we're still kind of in the context of the sell from Thursday. We're working back and
Yes.
forth in that range, and we really, I mean, we've kind of been underneath the +2 or +1 deviation from last Thursday, and we're just
Mhm.
balancing back and forth between that those deviations right now. So as we moved up overnight, we actually ran into the +1 deviation from that Thursday move. Uh,
Yeah.
if you were to look at that, if people look at that, and so there's context there that, hey, we ran into the upper deviation from the Thursday move. We know we're reverting back towards value or average price, right? And so we want to look at that. And as soon as we got to the average price from Thursday, slope really started accelerating. We tried to give a bounce today, around 4,600 being that big century mark. We've now got heavy intraday slope downwards. We're in what we call the fast lane, so -1 to -2, like you said, right? And as we come back up into
Mhm.
the underside of VWAP, we're thinking, okay, in the context of the move of Thursday, We're failing +1 from Thursday, so we know that this is a market heading back towards that broader value. We should probably be looking at shorts down underneath intraday VWAP, So it just, I always try
Yeah.
to put everything in context of value, prior day, prior week, prior month, and then look at that as a whole picture and navigate my way through that roadmap with intraday VWAP. So
I like that a lot. And really, it brings us down to that anchor point of that value or balance where everyone agrees on price. A lot of times people don't that don't work with volume profiles and don't think about things in terms of value. We look at value in terms of, does everyone sort of agree that around here is the best price that we're
right.
looking at? And that essentially is the basis of what we're looking. As my screen goes completely black here, that's fantastic. So the big
No
thing
worries.
again, as we come back to it, coming into this space, this 45.90.
Oh, I think we lost her again. I think where she was going there is the big thing as we come back into that 45.90s. I was telling my traders this morning, in the context of the day, that's kind of an extreme, right? From the overnight highs, we've fallen quite a bit, and we're actually holding the lows of Monday overnight, and what was, let's see here. Let me look at my RTH real quick. Yeah, we're holding the lows of what was, Friday's kind of 140, 130 lows. And so that area has been a bounce area so far today. We're also kind of balancing in that larger time frame view from last Thursday, and we're balancing between +1 deviation and -1 deviation of that move from last week, right? And we're actually just underneath that average price right now, which is 4,600. And again, that 4,600 being a large century mark, that average price is going to be like a magnet, right? You're going to want to revert to that value from those extremes. So today was kind of an edge. We tell our traders our edge comes from the edges, and that's not a quote I came up with. We've heard that other places, right? But your edge in a market like this that is balancing in a larger time frame view really does come from the edges. So as you're working out towards those extremes, you want to try to get those reversion trades back in towards value. And if we fail that extreme finally, right, those extremes give us really defined risk at the edge of the market. We know for a fact that we are at an edge today at that 90, what is it, 91.75 low. So if we do lose that, that's an amazing risk area because we know we're immediately wrong, right? There's no sitting there. There's no sitting there and thinking, okay, well, maybe this will hold. You know immediately that you are wrong. So, anyways, I'm getting told here that I'm not sure we might get Ann back. We think her internet might have died out. So, let me just say a few things here as we're wrapping up. I appreciate Ann for giving me the time to be on here. Unfortunately, the internet didn't work out too great, and we got our conversation cut short here. So. I'll leave you guys with a few things, right? Price, value, extension, volume. Those are all things that you want to consider in your trading, right? Where is average price? Where is value in this current market? And where are we in extension and relationship to that prior value? That's what I take into account a ton in my intraday trading. And I try to express towards our traders in the room. And then we use intraday VWAP around +1, -1 deviation to kind of navigate that. So that's pretty much it. We're getting cut short a little bit here, so I'll just leave you guys with, if you're interested in checking us out at thevwap.com, you can feel free to stop by there. Just VWAP, VWAP.com. You can kind of come to the site, check out what we're about, and I host opening broadcast every single day from 9 a.m. Eastern to 11, and then I'm back on the mic each day at the end of the day for the final hour. I give my thoughts and kind of where I think we'll be within the context of the week, and we have a really active Discord community, so if you guys are interested, feel free to stop by and check it out. Not Kim, Anne, thank you so much for having me on. And thanks to everybody at the CME and Trade of 8. Make sure to go by and check those out. So thanks to Place Your Trades, and that'll be it. I think I'll wrap up right there. So, all right, guys, have a great day. Enjoy your day. Make sure to manage your risk and be safe out there in the markets. All right, have a great day.